come together today. I'm so excited to talk to you because Thursday, your floating EP comes out. Very exciting.
Yes,
and of course, I want to talk about that. But before we do, can you talk a little bit about your story and how you got into making music?
Yeah, of course. So I've always loved music. My parents signed me up, enrolled me in some keyboard lessons when I was 2. So I can't remember a time where I wasn't playing music in some way, shape, or form. In my middle school and high school years, I was in a few bands, and I was really into it. And my bandmates, I mean, we're like young, we're like 13 and 14, so they weren't as committed, obviously, but I was really into it. So I learned that you could produce music yourself just from a laptop. And that was a really alluring option to me at the time. So I got my feet wet with that. And from there, around that same time period, I discovered EDM. So I've just found my niche from there. And I've been working on that ever since. So it's always been a part of my life.
That's awesome. That's so exciting because what a way you've come, just being the one in the band who was most interested in it, to learning to produce and doing your own thing.
Yeah, definitely. I've always had that sort of like internal drive for music. So I guess it happened really organically.
Oh, amazing. And I know during quarantine, you kind of worked on transitioning your sound a little bit. Can you talk about that and what made you kind of do that?
Yeah, definitely. I think all of us, regardless of what profession we're in, like what everyone's up to, I think everyone went through some sort of change or like some sort of awakening during this whole last year.
For sure.
And for me, that manifested through my music, and I was making a lot of stuff that was really meant for the dance floor and for the club. And I always say that there's a time and place for that, and that kind of music I still love, and I still make it. But during the pandemic, when we were all locked up, it just felt more appropriate to make more emotional music, something that had a bit more of a story, and something that you could listen to just kind of by yourself. Like you didn't necessitate a dance floor. So that's just the kind of stuff that I started making sort of by accident, just sort of naturally transitioned into that without meaning to necessarily. And it turns out that for me, making that style of music is way more fulfilling. It's just a lot of fun. And I started to find my footing really for the first time, I think, during quarantine and during this pandemic. Good. So now that we're starting to emerge out of this whole thing, and we're starting to see states reopen and things are starting to come back to normalcy, I'm re-entering shows with like this newfound confidence and sense of fulfillment. Like I'm playing music with my own lyrics live, which I've never done before, and that's a completely new feeling. So I think everyone's been saying stuff like it's a blessing in disguise, or it's like there is definitely a silver lining to this whole ordeal of a year.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. And I think it's so cool how you kind of naturally adapted. Like people weren't dancing at clubs during that period of time. So you transitioned in a really meaningful way, which is awesome.
Totally. Yeah. And that's not to bash anyone who like really doubled down and started making more dance music during the pandemic, because now that things are reopening, they're going to come back and their shows are going to be 10 times better. Now that they've had all this time to work on music. So everyone's been able to grow and develop this time.
For sure. And I know you touched on it a little bit there, but for someone who maybe hasn't listened to any of your music yet, how would you describe your sound to them?
Good question. How would I describe my sound? My new stuff is very vocal driven. I like to keep some elements like kind of lo-fi and nostalgic, but also trying to keep at least in this new direction, keeping more of a futuristic approach. So I'm trying to combine like two of those worlds and kind of bridge that gap through storytelling and through lyricism. And what I'm probably most known for is this sort of airy, whistly sound that I have in a lot of my tracks. So I've been innovating on that sound as well and finding new ways to create it and new ways to implement it. So hopefully that makes sense.
Yes, it totally does.
Okay. All right,
and
good.
For anyone who it doesn't make sense to, they just have to listen to the floating EP that comes out on Thursday and they'll get it.
Yes.
Speaking of that, let's get into it. I know it's being released by Space Yacht, which is wicked cool because what a great brand they've just created. And they don't often recognize EPs. So what was that like for you being recognized by Space Yacht?
Well, the whole team at Space Yacht, they're just great people, but they've also shown so much love, just not only to myself, but they show love to so many different genres, and they really are just in it for the music. Like their hearts are just without a doubt in the right place. And I sent over some of my new tracks to them. I sent just like a bundle for them to see if they wanted to sign any, and they picked a few that they were interested in. And we were like, okay, well, what about doing an EP? And the 3 tracks that are in this EP really show this arc of my transition into this new style. The title track, Floating, being where my style is now, or at least an iteration, a version of where my style is now, with the 3rd track being what's currently the most distant form of what I'm currently producing and writing. So I just really like that you see this kind of gradient from where I was in the months leading up to the pandemic, or the weeks leading up to the pandemic, to about April or so, when I wrote Floating and when I finished that one up.
Okay.
Actually, I finished Floating like a couple months ago because I re-recorded the vocals. But yeah, it's really, it means a lot that they are happy to do an EP with us. And it yeah, like I said, it just means a lot. Like they really believe in what I'm doing, and getting their stamp of approval really has a lot of weight. So I couldn't be more thrilled to be releasing it with them.
Yes, that's a super big deal. I love that you're associated with them, because I know they have good intentions and always get everything they do. So I love that for you. That's amazing.
Yeah, they're the best.
To the EP, you also recently released a single called Nostalgic with Bella Renee.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about how that track came together? I love that one.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, that's one of my favorites as well. That one always sticks out to me in my released and my unreleased discography, because it's by far the most chill thing, or most chill track that I've made. It's vocal driven the whole way through. So even on the drop, there's a vocal. So it's also probably the most pop that I've released under Ekonovah. But Bella and I, we both work under the same management with Jason. And so we met through him. And from the first time I heard her voice, I knew that I wanted to work with her. And I'm so happy that she liked my style too. So we actually started working on Nostalgic during the pandemic, when we were like actually locked up, like when we weren't allowed to go anywhere. So we finished that up, and I think it was 2 or 3 Zoom calls, and we did it over Zoom. And it's so like not awkward, but it's kind of socially daunting to meet someone over Zoom and to collaborate with someone over Zoom. It's just a different kind of energy, and a different, like, it works a different collaborative muscle that you don't really have to work otherwise, at least for me. Because usually when I work with people, like I've already been friends with them, or it was in person. So it was a brand new experience. I'm sure a lot of people could empathize with that over the pandemic.
For sure.
And yeah, it came together slowly but surely over those 3 calls. And I ended up getting COVID in the middle of the summer. And that was when I like actually wrapped up the track, when I was just like super sick. I had nothing to do. I was locked up, obviously. So I was like, well, I guess I'll finish this guy up. And it was finished. I actually did it with these headphones. I wasn't living, I was living with my parents. They were helping take care of me. So I wasn't in a studio where I had my headphones out, or my studio monitor. So I just finished it on some Apple
Plastic earpods. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I'm glad you survived COVID. That is so crazy.
You and me both. Yeah. I couldn't smell or taste. Like, I know this is kind of gross, but literally everything smelled and tasted like poop after I had it. Like, I know it's gross, but
it's a nightmare though.
For months. Yeah. It was an awful experience. And I had it pretty mild, but still, man, yeah, that was rough.
Yes. Have you regained your senses back? Are we 100%?
So I still have a few symptoms. I can still smell and taste, but I still have brain fog. Sometimes it's still hard to breathe, and I still have some fatigue that I didn't have before. But I'm able to track that I'm still getting better and healthier as time goes on. So I'm sure eventually I'll have no symptoms, but yeah, it's definitely an uphill recovery.
You're heading in the right direction for sure.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, bless your heart. And you're working on this music at the same time. God love you for that. That's amazing.
Yeah, I'd be bored out of my head if I wasn't working on music. So
at least you had that to like maybe keep you a little bit distracted.
Totally, exactly. Yeah.
And I totally get what you mean about working with people on Zoom and how it's different. You work a different muscle, because for me, like I usually do interviews in person in studio, and you get to kind of banter off people and read off their body language on Zoom. It's like, hope you're interested in what I'm asking you,
It's a sterile environment. So it's just like you miss all those, like you're saying, the body language and all those nonverbal communication signals. Yeah, it's just so different.
Different world.
Yeah,
Have you and Bella Renee met in person yet by now?
Yes. We've hung out several times. Good. And yeah, she's great. She and I are good friends.
Good. And speaking of collaborations, is there anyone else who's kind of on your dream list of people you'd like to work with?
There's someone at the top of that list for sure. Body Ocean is a group that I'm really into right now. Literally every single release that they put out, this is pretty rare for me to absolutely adore every release from an artist. But these two guys, I believe they're based in New Zealand, and they come from a drum and bass background. So they have a really keen ear for really precise mixing. And now that they're working on this house music project, everything they put out is just so, like I said, so precise and so eloquently packaged. I would absolutely love to work with them, or even do vocals for them now that I'm been really working on my singing. So I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Ooh, we're manifesting it right now. I feel like we're putting it out there. It could happen.
We're manifesting it. Yes. We're putting it into the universe.
Yes, absolutely. Someone has to. And what a fun trip to go to New Zealand if you had to go out there.
I would actually love to go to New Zealand. Yeah, I've only seen photos, but it looks beautiful out there.
Yes. It's happening. But this time next year, we'll be talking about your collaboration. I have no doubt.
There you go. Yeah, it's happening. You heard it here first.
That's how I live my life. It works.
It actually totally does, which is like shocking to me. But I've noticed it a few times in my life in the last few months. It's wild.
In your Twitter bio, it says cultivating a new sound, which I love, because what a hard thing to do in 2021 when we're so saturated with so many different things. I love that you're kind of on your own path. What is your process for cultivating your new sound, really?
Yeah. Well, that's been the mission statement from day one. Like my name, Ekonovah, even is like my own word to mean new sound. Echo means sound to me, and then nova means new in Latin. So I just kind of mashed those two up to mean new sound. So that's been the idea of this music project from the very beginning. So I think it's helpful when I go into a writing session that I that's just always in the back of my head. Like I'm always telling myself that I want to innovate, and I don't even want to recycle my own ideas or my own sounds. Like I really am attracted to the idea of all my songs sounding a bit different from one another, but having a through line. And I think I've been able to accomplish that, especially with my unreleased stuff. Like I've got that airy whistly sound that for me, like I feel like that really sets me apart from a lot of artists. But at the same time, like Floating, for example, which will be out on the 20th on Thursday, and Nostalgic, to pull up two tracks that we've talked about in this interview, sound completely different from one another, but they also share a lot in common. So I'm always trying to achieve that element that keeps it unique. And for me, through the production process, I don't know if you're familiar with production and like the tricks and tips that go. Okay, cool. Sure. So it's just I'll record something, I'll turn that to audio, and I'll just pitch it, and I'll mess around with the pitch, and I'll mess around with the reverb and the EQ until it sounds completely different. And then I'll take that and I'll bounce that out to audio, and I'll keep doing the same process until it sounds completely new. And in doing so, I mean, it'd be incredibly hard to replicate that because there's like so many small buttons that I'm tweaking. So that helps me keep my sound kind of untouchable, I guess, for lack of a better word, which I like, just so I can have my own signature.
Yes.
So when I keep all those things front of mind going into a session, I think that's what helps me, quote unquote, cultivate that new sound. And that's in my bio, just for the same reason. Like that's my mission statement. So every time I go to my social media, I see that, and it helps it stay in my head, keeps it fresh.
Yes. What advice would you give other artists who might be trying to do the same thing and cultivate their own sound?
Yeah, it takes a lot of time. For me, it took, I think, maybe 5 or 6 years to really actually begin, not even to cultivate the sound, but to notice that it existed in its infancy stage. So my advice is to trust the process, to understand that it takes a long time. If you're lucky, you might stumble into your own style, your own sound, but just understand that it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of patience, and along that journey, just find what feels fun for you when you're working on music. And as long as you're having fun, then there's no time wasted, in my opinion. And through that process, inevitably, if you are making that a goal to have your own style, I think that'll naturally kind of unravel itself and reveal itself to you. But again, it just, at least for me and for some of my friends, we've all agreed it just takes time.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you have that patience, then I think you'll get there eventually.
Yes, trust the process. That is always solid advice. And patience goes a long way. People underestimate that.
Patience, yeah. Those are two really important things that have taken me a long time to find solace in. But yeah, patience and what was the other one? I literally just forgot it. And trust the process. There it is. Yeah, those are the two.
100%.
See, there's that brain fog from COVID.
The COVID brain has got you, Ekonovah. I get it. I've seen that you've been doing a lot of different shows. You're starting to kind of like do live performance.
Yes.
Again. How has that been feeling being back on stage?
Gosh, it feels so amazing and so surreal to be back on stage. Like I said, like I'm coming back with this newfound confidence that I didn't really know that I was lacking before. But now that I have something to compare it to, I can tell that I just like wasn't fully aligned with what I was wanting to do. I think like now that I'm singing on my tracks and like there's storytelling, I feel more aligned. And I think that's where that extra confidence has come from. So it feels amazing. Yesterday I got back from I had to play 2 shows in Texas. Wow. And that's actually my home state. So it was really fun to play. I've never played in Texas before. And that was like I think my second time actually back in Texas since I moved to Arizona when I was 5. Mm-hmm. So it was so much fun to be back, and it was so weird being on an airplane and so weird being in an airport. And I mean, obviously everyone's masked up in the airport since those are the rules right now, but it's just so weird to be back in that environment. And it's such a trip. It's just so weird. So I'm so happy, and my management and I were more show dates are coming in, and we're getting more dates lined up.
Good.
And it just feels so amazing. And I forgot like this part of my brain that works when I'm like planning for like an itinerary and stuff like that. Like it just feels so good to work that part of myself again. So yeah. Man, it's great. And then playing for a live audience is like, you just can't replace that. I mean, I got depressed a lot during the pandemic for obvious reasons, but also because I wasn't able to perform, which for me, that's really a part of my identity.
Yes.
So, but that's for a lot of people, that was really robbed from us during the pandemic. So, man, it feels amazing. Yeah.
Good. I'm so glad you're back out there. Are there any places kind of on your dream list where you'd like to perform? One
of my favorite cities in the world is San Francisco. Yeah. So I would love to go back there. I think I've played 3 shows there, maybe 4 shows. And each time I just fell more and more in love with the city. So I would love to be back there just so I could be a tourist again.
Yeah.
And just so I can experience it. And then I've never played in Hawaii, but I think that would be so much fun to play over there. And my dad lived in Hawaii when he was a kid, and he's always told me stories, and my girlfriend lived there for a period of time as well, and I've never been, so I would just love to experience it and see what it's like.
Yes. Oh, both gorgeous places and both very different from where I am, but I know we would love to have you here in Maine sometime as well.
Oh, and see, that's 3rd on my list is Maine.
That's number 3. I get it. Hawaii does, better. I understand. Here in Maine, Ekonovah, our state motto is the way life should be. So I want to know, according to you, what is the way life should be?
The way life should be. That's a really profound question and very open-ended. The way life should be. I think life should just be positive, and there's a lot of hate in this world. And I know this sounds like a cliche answer, but it's true. There's a lot of hate in this world, especially right now with what's going on around the globe. And what's the prompt? The way the world should
The
be.
way life should be.
The way life should be. There should just be more love. There should be more positivity. There should be more empathy. Probably empathy. I think that's probably a good one to single out. I think that might be the root of a lot of problems. And especially over this pandemic, I mean, there's a lot of people disagreeing with one another. I think it's been really hard for all of us to see eye to eye with our peers who might disagree with us. And it's been hard for me, and I know a lot of my friends, to empathize. So I guess empathy is my answer to that. That's a cool question, though. I got to think on that more. It's pretty deep.
I do my best. I'd like to make you think a little bit, but that was a great answer. Absolutely. If there's anything this world is lacking, it's certainly empathy right now. So I couldn't have said it better myself.
I would like to flip the script and see what your answer would be. I'm curious, since you've had a lot of time to mull it over.
I know, and I'm such a cheater because honestly, that's the one question I ask everybody because everyone comes up with such a different answer. For me, I think the way life should be is all love, all positivity. Life should be doing exactly what you want to do and not having the fear of being judged for it.
Yeah.
I love empathy, so I might have to add that to my answer one day down the line.
Hey, those really go hand in hand, though.
Yes, that's true.
Our two answers. All right, we're on the same page then.
I knew we would get along, Ekonovah. I'm so glad that we got to chat today and we got to get to know you a little bit. And Thursday, I'll be anxiously awaiting. I mean, I did already listen to the EP because I'm a little special. Jamie hooked it up with the link, but the world will get
VIP.
On. Yes, amazing. So the world will hear it on Thursday and we can't wait. Thank you again. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it as well. That was really fun.
Awesome. Take care, Ekonovah. Until we meet again.
Until we meet again. I'll see you in Maine.
Yes, you better.